Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another session of Her Own Way. Today we are in conversation with a barrister. She has done her master's in law from George Washington University. She has a specialization in gender studies. She is the faculty member also. She's a freelance writer also. Her list goes on and on. But what I really like about is that she's working on the legal empowerment of the marginalized. What is legal empowerment? We'll definitely ask her. She's working as a gender specialist in TransKarachi. What is her role in TransKarachi? What is TransKarachi? We'll also ask about that. So please welcome Maham. Assalamu alaikum, Maham. Kaise hain aap?
Assalamu alaikum, Bisma. How are you? Thank you so much for having me and for inviting me to this platform.
Pleasure is mine, Maham. I was going through your profile. It is such a mashallah, it's such a distinguished profile that I was wondering what to include and what to exclude in the introduction, because the list goes on, and mashallah, you are a mashallah very young person at the same time. So I was wondering how could she, when I saw you the first time, I said, how could she have accomplished at this young age? But congratulations for what you're doing. And especially, what is this legal empowerment? You hear about economic empowerment, social empowerment. So what is this legal empowerment?
So, I think that it's very important to understand that empowerment is not an isolated concept. You can't be just financially empowered. You can't just be physically empowered. You also have to be intellectually empowered. And usme legal empowerment is a very, very important thing. So access to justice is actually every human being's constitutional right. And I think that there are so many barriers and so many obstructions to access to justice for women in Pakistan in particular, that it's very important to work on legal empowerment. So when we talk about legal empowerment, we need awareness, first of all, because a lot of women don't even know what their rights are. So awareness of what those rights are. And then the second step, of course, is how do you achieve those rights? What are the legal avenues, remedies, redressal mechanisms available to you by the state through which you can achieve those rights? So I think legal empowerment is two-tiered, because पहली बात तो ये कि वो rights क्या हैं, उनकी awareness हो, और फिर उनको आप हासिल कैसे करें, इसके ऊपर we try to inform them of how to get to those rights. So it's a two-tiered solution, and very important because, like I said, access to justice is a constitutional right for everybody.
Maham, how do you go about it? First, there's sensitizing, लोगों को aware करना कि उनके rights क्या हैं, especially females, and then how can they access the justice? Is this the two-tier process of legal empowerment?
Absolutely, because without the awareness, it's a lost cause. So the first tier is always gender sensitization in general, making women and men actually, and of course in the transgender community, gender is a term that includes all genders. So the first step is to make them aware of what these rights are. I always say this, Pakistan is the most legislating country in the world. Sindh in particular has so many legislations, so many laws that are aimed and focused on protecting women, but on laws ki awareness nahi hai. So the idea is to have awareness of what those laws are, and then of course teach them what the tools and methods are to achieve those. So it is a two-tiered thing.
So Maham, do we, like you said, Pakistan is a legislating country and there's lack of awareness, but do we have enough structures or procedures for the assessment of law?
So, Bisma, I think Pakistan is a country that has its own context. It's a very unique country in that sense that agar hamare jo hain laws, and even when we do have systems in place, unfortunately, we also have a huge amount of cultural backlash and cultural factors that are massively obstructing women from achieving those rights. To give you an example, ab jaise agar hamara ek domestic violence ka law hai. Now, a lot of times I remember that women would file an FIR in the stations and then they would take those FIRs back, because then they suddenly realize that if we are going to file an FIR against the person who's financially providing to us, and culturally we will get a lot of shame attached to actually filing an FIR, they take their FIR back, because it is in fact a lack of economic, intellectual empowerment that prohibits them from being legally empowered then. So wo FIR wapas le leti hain, so then there is nothing that we can do, right? So I think वही बात है कि ये सारे फैक्टर्स जब होलिस्टिकली इकट्ठे होंगे, where you are economically, intellectually, financially, physically empowered, only then can you be legally empowered. You cannot in isolation legally empower someone, because no matter how much legislation you churn out, no matter how much you tell them कि ये आपका नेरिस्थान है, आप यहाँ आए, unless there is also intellectual and economic empowerment, those processes will not work.
I think that's a very, very interesting point which we have raised, that, you know, lack of intellectual and economical empowerment. I think they are aware of their lack of economical empowerment, financial empowerment, but they are not aware of what is lacking when it comes to intellectual empowerment. I think, and that is something which definitely needs to be sought after. Maham, मुझे थोड़ा बताइए कि what are you doing at TransKarachi? I was reading your profile, so it says you are developing some gender action plan. What is that?
So TransKarachi, let me tell you about the project first. TransKarachi is a project that is funded by the Asian Development Bank and the Sindh government. And this is basically going to launch the Red Line BRT bus system, or the bus rapid transit system, which we hope is going to revolutionize public transport in the city. You know, we aim to do that. And we are very, very conscious of the fact that this Red Line BRT system should be very accessible to women. They should feel very safe traveling in it. There are features in the buses and the stations that are focused on ensuring that women feel safe, that they are not harassed. We have an app where they can quickly report harassment agar aisa koi incident hota hai, and we take immediate action. We have priority seating for women on the station. We have a separate compartment for the women in the buses. We have female bus drivers and conductors. So the idea is to truly be gender inclusive and safe and accessible for women, ताकि ये public transport जो है वो पूरी तरह से use कर सकें. And that is what our gender action plan basically focuses on, is to truly have the features and the tools and the mechanisms to make the Red Line BRT bus system gender accessible and safe. Because you know, interestingly enough, when we talk about empowerment, a key factor is mobility. Unless you have mobility for women, they will never be able to truly be empowered, especially economic empowerment की तो ये एक prerequisite है कि उनकी mobility हो. You know, they're not dependent on anyone. They can go reach wherever they need to by using the public transport, which is safe, which unfortunately we don't have right now. So mobility for women is a key, I would say, factor and obstruction in their empowerment. And we, by launching the Red Line BRT bus system, hope to fix that problem. We hope to give them mobility, which can then lead to economic empowerment.
Maham, that sounds great. And हमने देखा है कराची में especially buses का क्या हाल होता है. And even अगर सेपरेट कंपार्टमेंट्स है फॉर फीमेल्स के, जब ज्यादा रश पड़ता है तो वो बेसिकली वो उधर मर्द भी बैठे हुए होते हैं. एंड जो बिल्कुल लास्ट सीट होती है जो मर्दों को औरतों से कनेक्ट करती है, वो तो एक बहुत ही न्यूसेंस सीट होती है. आई ऑल्सो हैड द एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ my child of sitting in buses, and I think this is something which we dread also the most. But मुझे थोड़ा सा इसमें एक चीज ही बताइए माहम, whenever we talk about women empowerment, हम मर्दों की दुनिया में जिनके साथ हमने आप भी काम करती हैं, एक कोवर्किंग स्पेस ही है वहाँ पे, हम खवातीन की जब एम्पावरमेंट की बात करते हैं तो हम उनको बिल्कुल इंक्लूसिव करने के लिए सेक्लूडेड क्यों कर देते हैं. मेल फीमेल बस ड्राइवर्स होंगे, फीमेल कंडक्टर. So please
That's actually a very good question, and ये question मुझसे काफी पूछा भी जाता है कि आपने उनका कंपार्टमेंट क्यों सेपरेट किया है, आप ये तो और आपने उनको एक्सक्लूड कर दिया या सेग्रीगेट कर दिया. So this is a very popular question actually, and इसका जवाब ये है बिस्मा कि उसकी दो वजूहात हैं. एक तो ये है कि as a country right now I think we are not ready for the fact कि हम उनका एक ही कंपार्टमेंट कर रहे हैं, because उसके भी कुछ prerequisites हैं. You have to have a certain level of cultural, legal, intellectual empowerment to say कि अच्छा हम segregate नहीं कर रहे, right? So as a country, I don't think we have reached that level of awareness, because the safety of the women is our top priority right now. We want them to be safe in this transport. अभी पेशावर BRT आपने देखी होगी, it's a similar project, वहाँ पे भी segregated हैं, and the women feel very safe. So I think as a nation right now, we are not ready to have a compartment that would have both males and females, because we are not there yet. Also because our priority is safety for the women, and that's what we're really focusing on right now. We don't want कि कोई भी एक ऐसा incident हो. So I think that is the reason. As far as the female bus drivers and conductors are concerned, सिर्फ female bus drivers and conductors नहीं होंगी, female भी होंगी. Of course, we will have male drivers and male conductors. The idea is that when we launch the Red Line BRT, we want the female ridership to be a substantial number. We want कि चाहे वो ख़वातीन कॉलेज जा रही हैं, शॉपिंग करने जा रही हैं, स्कूल जा रही हैं, बच्चों को छोड़ने जा रही हैं, जो भी उनके डेली काम है वो करने में उनको सेफ वो फील करें, comfortable फील करें. And I think that's why we have provided the conductors and the bus drivers, so that if such an incident happens, they can easily report it. Because you have to understand that जब भी हम किसी country के लिए कोई plan बनाते भी हैं for urban public transport system, we have to look at the context of the country. अब हम अपनी country में वो BRT system mimic नहीं कर सकते जो let's say South Korea या किसी और country में, because like I said earlier, we have our own cultural context. So keeping that in mind, I think we have come up with these features because our top priority is female mobility. We want them to be able to get in on the buses and travel safely, freely, as many times as they want, reach where they need to. We want कि उनकी जो dependency है कि मेरा भाई मुझे छोड़ देगा, my father will drop me, या मैं गाड़ी का wait कर रही हूँ, that should end. We are also doing a lot of consultations with some universities, क्योंकि हमारा जो बस का रूट है ना उसमें बहुत universities भी आती हैं, कराची यूनिवर्सिटी है, IBA है, सर सैयद and lots of others. तो वहाँ भी हमने जाके consults किए with the female students. उनसे हमें यही feedback मिला कि just for them to reach the university is such a task in such a tall order, क्योंकि आप जैसे कि you said public transport के जो इस वक्त हालात हैं. So we hope to fix that problem.
And this is the situation in cities, one of the biggest, largest cities of Pakistan. So I wonder what is happening in villages and in towns. My question was not related to the project. I was generally trying to understand कि जब भी हम empowerment की बात करते हैं ना, हम ख़वातीन को बिल्कुल secluded कर देते हैं. And कहीं ना कहीं जिसे मैं अक्सर अपने गेस्ट से सवाल करती हूँ कि this project, I completely understand when you talk about female compartment, and I'm talking generally other than the project. I personally feel that हम जितना काम ख़वातीन के लिए जो हम actions कर रहे हैं, हमें बहुत ज़्यादा काम उसके साथ साथ sensitization मर्दों के लिए भी करना चाहिए, awareness के ऊपर करना चाहिए, because इस तरह से dichotomy हम society में create कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि दोनों ने coexist साथ ही करना है घरों में भी. And so this is basically what I was trying to say. I completely understand जो आप कह रही हैं बसों के हवाले से, कि जब तक मर्दों के लिए जहन में हम ये चीज़ create नहीं करेंगे कि every woman who is traveling और जो बस में जा रही है, she is not a free access, she is also a respectable person. जब तक ये mindset जो ना clear होंगे, हम इसी तरह के initiatives हमें लेते रहने पड़ेंगे. These are very good ones. इसमें there's nothing harm in that. There's no harm in that. अब मुझे ये बताइए महाम, हमने एक्सेस टू जस्टिस की बात की, एंड तो मुझे थोड़ा पता है आपके जहन में डिग्निफाइड वर्कप्लेस का क्या कॉन्सेप्ट है?
So I think आपकी जो दोनों बातें उनका मैं इकट्ठे जवाब देती हूँ. बिल्कुल you're right, segregation का तो कोई फायदा नहीं, because the idea is to actually teach everybody to coexist and respect each other and give dignity and respect to every individual. So absolutely, and I think that in fact हमारा जो concept है, unfortunately as a nation, is that women don't even need to access public spaces, क्योंकि वो तो उनका तो काम है घर में रहना. तो इसी myth को तो actually हम break करना चाहते हैं कि actually women should own these public spaces, whether it's through using the Red Line BRT, whether it's through riding a scooty on the road, whether it's a Kareem captain who's now a female, whether it's the Women on Wheels campaign, जिसमें उन्होंने scooties की थी. All of that, the idea is that the public spaces are just as much for women and transgenders as they are for men. So I absolutely agree with you that the idea is to empower and facilitate them enough to be able to reclaim the public spaces for themselves. And we are certainly hoping to do that with the Red Line BRT. And I think जो आपका दूसरा सवाल है, dignified workplace क्या होना चाहिए? Let me give you a personal example. When I joined TransKarachi as a gender specialist, and उस वक्त ये बड़ी बात भी थी कि gender specialist का role क्या है, urban public transport में general specialist क्या करेंगी, you know. So when I joined TransKarachi, and I think on my 3rd day in the office, I arranged a massive training where I trained every single employee for 3 days in the laws on protection of harassment in the workplace, जो पाकिस्तान में इसके कानून है. And everyone from our CEO all the way to our office T-boys, every person in the office attended that training. So nobody was excluded. It was a mandatory training for all the males and females in the office, regardless of their seniority. So the attempt was to initiate that so that the message goes about how we have zero tolerance policy for harassment and how we are a truly inclusive organization. As far as the definition of dignified workplace is concerned, I think it is the kind of place where everyone feels comfortable, everyone feels safe, everyone feels seen and heard, regardless of their gender and regardless of, you know, their status. I think that is a dignified workplace to me.
Thank you, Maham. Maham, please tell me about, you know, when we talk about these procedures, and again, I'll bring to that, you have worked in various organizations. What has been your experience when it comes to, like you talked about the training, sexual harassment training? Most of the organizations, they don't do it. If they do it, it's a one-time feature. And even if they do it as a one-time feature, the next step of harassment committees and representation of women, either it's not there, or if it's there, it's quite weak. So what is your experience? Organizations level?
Absolutely. I think कि although ये law 2016 में pass हो गया था of protection of women in the workplace, इसकी जो implementation है वो unfortunately बहुत weak है अभी भी, although it's a mandatory federal law now. The idea is not just to have a training like you're saying कि एक superficial सी आपने करा दी. You then have to have a 3-person committee जिसमें एक female mandatory होनी चाहिए. You have to constantly have these refresher courses so that the females and the men know of the harassment laws. And you also have to put up posters all over the office so that people know what harassment is, what the redressal mechanisms are. So when you visit our office, inshallah, I'll show you. We have put massive posters on each floor of our organization, reiterating our zero tolerance policy for harassment, reiterating what your avenues are if you do feel any such thing has happened. Hamari committee members to uspe naam likhe hue hain. We also have an anonymous helpline where you can anonymously report an incident if you don't feel comfortable, you know, revealing your identity. तो इस तरह के जो भी उसके mechanisms हैं, because you're absolutely right, just doing a superficial training about the law is not going to help. You have to truly meaningfully allow your employees to feel safe and report such instances of harassment to really fix the idea. और उसमें जो हमने training की थी उसमें हमने law का तो बताया ही था, लेकिन हमने sensitization भी बहुत की थी, because जैसे मैं पहले कह रही थी कि to report harassment इसमें एक बहुत sense of shame भी attached होती है, unfortunately, in our culture. So in order to tackle that, उस training में काफी हद तक हमने sensitization पे भी focus किया कि the taboo and the shame to reporting of harassment has to be addressed.
I completely agree. First, you go through an incident, and then you actually have to self-analyze. Okay, now this has to be reported. So the entire process is quite taxing on the person जिसके साथ incidents होते हैं. Okay, these are general questions, and I am not asking you as Maham gender specialist in TransKarachi, but I'm asking Maham as an individual. Maham का collective experience है, exposure है, उसको देखते हुए I'm asking this question. Maham, जो harassment committees होती भी हैं और जिसमें हम कहते हैं कि चाहे mandatory है एक खातून का होना 3 member के अंदर, right? One or more at least. So at least one should. So how capable and competent these ladies are to handle the situation? I'll come to the men's side later, but क्योंकि एक कोटा बना देते हैं ना हम कि हर लाजमी है, and if you're in the nascent stage, तो आप फिर बस आपको कोई ना कोई देखना होता है जो best fit होता है आपके resource के अंदर. So how competent these females are?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question actually, कि सिर्फ आपका female होना ही requirement नहीं होनी चाहिए. There should be other requirements. You're absolutely right. And I think that the idea is कि female की इसलिए ये requirement है कि they probably will have compassion and passion for the victim, right? Because of them being from the same gender. Having said that, I do think that it's important, not just for the female, but the male members as well of the committee to first be trained first उनकी भी capacity building हो जानी चाहिए, and then they are made members of the committee. So for example, with us, after I did this training and we were sure that everybody is trained and sensitized, then we picked the committee members. ऐसी अगर आप कागजी तौर पर committee members pick कर लें, just क्योंकि आप like you're saying quota fix हो जाए, लेकिन उनको actually कोई knowledge ही नहीं है law के बारे में, उनकी sensitization ही नहीं हुई भी, they don't know how to handle such cases, तो उसका कोई फायदा नहीं. So I think the female member as well as the male members in the committee all should have a requirement to first be trained, sensitized, and then be allotted membership of the committee. वरना तो वो वही pattern repeat हो जाएगा.
What is now being done in different organizations? आपने development sector से भी आपका ताल्लुक है, तो आपने क्या experience किया है? Actually,
sorry, I can't hear you. I've lost your voice.
Yes, I was saying, Maham, that आपने डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर का भी आपका एक्सपीरियंस है, राइट? तो असल में हो क्या रहा है इदारों के अंदर, किस तरह से वो इसको इस लॉ के साथ इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कर रहे हैं, कितना जस्टिस कर रहे हैं?
You know, Misma, honestly, things are changing now. I do think that things are. I came to Pakistan in 2015. I remember when I moved back, 2016 में भी law pass हुआ था. तो things are changing. I do think that things are getting better. I do think actually ये law तो 2010 में भी हो चुका था, so no, it was already passed, just to correct myself. But I do think that after 2016 there has been a change certainly in how people are implementing the law, you know, and I think it's actually been very positive recently, because now more and more organizations, obviously with the Me Too movement and some other awareness campaigns, अब इस चीज की ज़्यादा awareness हो गई है, and I do think that it is getting better. I do think we still have work to do in terms of, like I said, the cultural barriers, the shame and taboo attached with reporting such cases. We still have work to do in terms of कि proper mechanisms follow हो. अब तो जो हमारे ombudsman हैं मुझसे, उनका इसमें बहुत बड़ा role है, that अगर कोई अपनी organization की investigation से नहीं satisfied, तो they can go and complain to the ombudsman, and फिर वो आके investigation करते हैं. And so I do think that the state is certainly trying to facilitate women and ensuring कि harassment ना हो workplace पे, and I do think कि अब उसकी implementation meaningful way में हो रही है now, because now people are a little bit more open to talking about it. पहले तो there was so much shame की बात ही नहीं होती थी. So now that the conversation has opened, the dialogue has opened, at least there is more reporting happening. Of course, we still have a lot of work to do, of course. लेकिन ये है कि at least the dialogue and the conversation is happening now, जो कि नहीं हो रहा था पहले. So I think it's positive.
I think I agree to that, and I think it's a long process and it will take time, and we have taken the first step. Many organizations have taken the first step. Ma'am, tell me that, you know, how, in your experience, especially in Pakistan and working in Pakistani organization, how open or how accommodating are people, both men and women, are towards those genders who call themselves, who choose themselves to be women or men?
Are we speaking of transgenders? Sorry, aapki awaaz cut gayi.
Yes, yes.
जी. So I think that this is actually a very interesting question, क्योंकि जब भी हम लोग gender की बात करते हैं तो लोग automatically assume करते हैं कि it's men and women, and they sort of end the conversation there. But gender is actually an all-inclusive term. You know, उसमें of course there is transgenders are included. अब तो उनका शनाख्ती कार्ड भी है. The government is also trying to facilitate them by giving them jobs, and our general manager operations actually is making a very conscious effort to hire transgenders in TransKarachi as well. We are trying to hire some transgenders on the buses as security, as conductors, in our offices as well. So I think gender is actually a term that is all inclusive. It's not just male and female, it is transgenders. And you know, जब हम gender based violence की बात करते हैं, तो उसमें unfortunately the transgender community in Pakistan has suffered greatly, because there is a huge amount of violence that is directed at them. So when I speak of gender-based violence, I don't just mean violence towards women, I also mean towards the transgender community, because gender-based violence is a huge, huge problem in Pakistan. In fact, the transgender community की जो legal empowerment है, वो और भी tricky है, because उनके लिए भी redressal mechanisms and legal avenues तो हैं, but unfortunately वही बात आ गई कि the way the culture views them, the way there's a shame attached to it, legal empowerment for them is even more layered and complex. So whenever we speak of gender or a gender action plan, we certainly are including the transgender community and recognizing, their problems. Absolutely.
We have enough, when we're talking about transgender, so do our workplaces have these environment and culture which is inclusive, or it's still in the transition? Did I say it again?
Sorry, I was just now say it. Yeah.
Achha, so do our workplaces have work environment which is inclusive for transgenders, or it's in the transition phase?
The honest answer is that it's in the phase where we're trying to get there. I think the first step is to get organizations to recognize the transgender community first of all, because ek bahut arse tak to hum recognize hi nahi kar rahe the na, it was a hidden secret. And now we are certainly recognizing them legally also, because unke shanakti cards hain. There's laws being passed as well. And now I think we are beginning to be cognizant of the fact that we must give them access to employment and fair opportunities. So we have a long way to go. But I can only speak for TransKarachi, and I think that we, in our gender action plan, have included the transgender community in terms of recruitment, employment, jobs, और हमारे जो buses और stations हैं उन पे हमने transgender community के लिए भी priority seating रखी है, जैसे कि आपने ख़वातीन के लिए रखी है, उसी तरह transgenders के लिए भी buses में और stations में priority seating भी है, so that they can also access the public transport freely and safely.
Maham, tell me something about yourself. Why you decided to choose this field? Why you have become a barrister for gender specialization, masters in law, Canada? So, what made you do that?
So there's an interesting story attached to this. I think, and I get this question a lot because people always ask me, आपने बार किया तो फिर हम आप corporate law में चली जाती. It would have been so much more financially viable. But I think when I was a teenager, I was actually interning for an organization. नाम नहीं मैं उनको लूंगी, लेकिन वहाँ पे I remember rape cases जो होते थे, उनको free pro bono legal representation provide ki jati thi. And I saw a case happening. It was the rape of a minor child, and we lost that case. And we only lost that case because of the procedural and issues in our system. We also lost that case because there was no legal awareness and legal empowerment at that time. Although everybody knew that the person was guilty, but we lost that case simply because of a lack of awareness, a lack of a systemic procedural plan. We lost that case because of lack of good, adequate legal representation. And I think that had such an impact on me, and that case really just broke my heart. And usi waqt I decided that I'm going to pursue law and pursue it to go into the development sector, pursue it to work for legal empowerment and access to justice of women in particular. So इसलिए मेरा कभी भी ये plan नहीं था कि मैं law degree या बाहर करके corporate sector में जाऊँ. I always wanted to specialize in gender and human rights and then come back and try to contribute in my own way. And so that's, I guess, what I'm trying to do.
Okay. Maham, if I ask you, did ever choosing this field, coming to, doing your barrister and then doing your gender studies, did it ever scare you, the kind of work you're doing? Did it ever haunt you, when you go back home, when you're trying to sleep?
Tangible fears, no, but yes, it does take an emotional toll, of course, on a person, because what happens is, इस तरह का काम आप तभी कर सकते हैं जब आप उसके बारे में passionate हो. And with the passion and the sensitivity comes a sense of responsibility and an emotional connection and a burden. So yes, there are times when it takes a toll on you. But it's very interesting that you ask me this, Bisma, because I always tell women this, कि जो चीजें society view करती है ना as कमजोरी, मसलन passion, sensitivity, attachment, these are actually your powers. These are actually your strengths. These are actually the things that will make you successful in your workplace and your personal life. So I think that, yes, it does take a little bit of an emotional toll, but I think that if I did not have the kind of passion and sensitivity for the cause, then I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be having meaningful, impact. So ये दोनों hand in hand जाती हैं कि you have to have that kind of attachment and passion कि आपको personally affect करे. A lot of times, people tell me that, ये अगर even if something is happening, it's not personal. And I always correct them and I say, actually, it is personal. It is very personal if someone is being denied their rights. It is personal if there is a huge number of domestic violence cases in Pakistan and kids are being molested. And there is no actual legal empowerment. It is personal and it should be personal. So I think that, yes, this job requires a certain amount of passion and sensitivity that takes a toll on you, but that is what makes it inherently so meaningful and impactful. And I think that is actually a strength.
Okay, when I asked this question, I was actually trying to understand, many psychologists, they go through a lot of such, when they treat patients, they also need some kind of help. So that's why I asked you, because you on daily basis, you have been taking care of such cases, and you're in this state of mind, continuing thinking, kya ho sakta hai, kya nahi, to hame us tarah se action plan banana hai, right? So this is the reason I asked. Sensitivity, definitely, it's our strength. It's not a weakness. But how do we keep ourselves, strong in this, and how do we, come out of it?
There's a few things that I can.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think few things. For me personally, spending time with my son is a great stress buster for me. It really grounds me and brings me back to reality. So I have a 5-year-old son and I spend some time with him. And I think that really is pretty much my stress reliever. So I do a lot of that. And then other than that, I think the way I keep myself strong to deal with things, honestly, is because I also have a lot of faith. I'm a very spiritual person. So I think the faith in God certainly helps me to get by, especially on those hard days when you're feeling very defeated and it's not working. And those days to have faith. Faith also in Allah and faith in yourself help you get by. The third thing is that we have a great, very supportive professional team here. We really try to keep each other's spirits up and we try to encourage each other and propel each other to be our best versions. So that helps us get by on the tough days. And I also read a lot and that seems to really help me. I've been reading quite a bit since I was a teenager. Of course, the choice of my books and the genres has changed, but I do certainly read and that helps me to sort of recenter myself. So those are some things that I do.
When I've asked these series of questions, it leads to this very important question. So who are you basically, Maham? Who is Maham?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Who is Maham? That's interesting. I think if I had to really describe myself in third person, I would say Maham is someone who is trying her best to be her best version and have as much impact as she can and change as many lives as she can and do the best work with the most sincerity that she can. So I would say.
Maham, what is empowerment to you?
I think empowerment to me is to be able to have choice. I know it's a tricky one, but I think that to have the freedom of choice to me is empowerment. वो freedom of choice किसी भी उसमें हो सकती है, but just to have the freedom to make choices for yourself and to stand by them, I think is what empowerment means.
And who do you think is an empowered woman?
Is an empowered woman or an empowered person?
Woman.
I mean, like I said, हम जैसे पहले बात कर रहे थे, I think an empowered woman has to be financially, intellectually, legally, physically empowered and complete to truly be empowered. आपने देखा होगा हमारी society में lots of people may have financial empowerment, but they don't have the freedom to make choices, so they're not intellectually empowered. So I think that intellectual, physical, financial, legal empowerment, जब ये सब चीजें amalgamate होती हैं, that's when you're truly empowered as a human being.
Please tell me about, do we have in our workplaces, or outside even our workplaces, do we have these formal, informal groups or meetups where women can take professional advice? There are people who are born in certain environments that they're working out of need, and they find it quite overwhelming when they are in a workplace to perform in, to behave in certain way. So do we have these groups or these clubs, I don't know what you want to call it, but which give coaching and which provides you certain kind of help?
No, I think you're right. ऐसे हैं लेकिन बहुत कम हैं. Of course, you guys are doing great work from your platform, and I hope it reaches as many people as possible, and they know that we're there for them. So kudos to you for that effort and that campaign. I think कि ऐसे groups और होने चाहिए, to be honest, where women can support each other, propel each other, help them to flourish. चाहे वो आपकी working moms का group हो, चाहे वो just young girls जो भी अपना career शुरू कर रही हैं उनका group हो. It's very important to have support groups because you learn so much from each other. You learn so much from each other's experiences. You learn so much from just someone supporting you. So I think इस तरह के groups की बहुत ज़रूरत है. There are some, but there should be much more that are focused on bringing women together. चाहे वो, like I said, working moms हो, single moms हो, girls who are just joining the workplace, or mid-level professionals, or how to tackle with the different challenges in the workplace that you get as a female in Pakistan. I think support groups will go a long way in helping them cope. So I think बिल्कुल होने चाहिए ऐसे.
Maham, what can we do in our capacity as individuals to facilitate such females actually at workplace? What can we do in our capacity? Just your general advice. क्या कर सकते हैं? हम brainstorm कर रहे हैं, तो what do you have in mind? हम क्या कर सकते हैं अपने own individual capacity में?
I mean, मेरा तो जैसे काम ही बहुत focused है obviously on gender, so there's a lot that we are doing as a department, but just as a general concept of a female working in Pakistan, I think there's little things you can do. You don't have to have a grand gesture to just एकदम से impact पड़े. You can do little things that will eventually come together and have an impact. So, and those little things can be to support each other, facilitate each other, hear each other. It's so important to be heard. But for example, Aj, I'm here sitting with you giving this interview because our manager, Mehwish, who is a female, who's our manager of communications, has set this up for me because she wanted my voice to be heard so that all other women can hear it and we can make a difference. So it is actually teamwork between her and I. So to support each other like that, propel each other, hear each other, इस तरह की चीजें आप कर सकते हैं in the workplace. हम हमेशा ये बताते हैं अपनी harassment training में भी that अगर आपके साथ कोई harassment का incident unfortunately हो जाता है, you can always go and tell a colleague who can then stand up for you, corroborate your story. So I think you can, certainly support each other. And other than that, I think the best thing females can do for each other in the workplace is be their very best version and do their very best job. Because I think that then helps to break the myth that women cannot work, they are not good at their job, they're not competent. इस myth को break करने के लिए अगर आप directly एक दूसरे के लिए कुछ ना करें, but इतना ही कर लें कि अपनी job में you be the best, most professional version of yourself, that will also really help the other women who are trying to come in the work sector and breaking those myths. Because you're representing them.
Yeah, absolutely correct. I think everything starts from within ourselves, and let's be the best version of ourselves and make a mark and pave the way for
absolutely.
So, Mom, tell me, second last question. So please tell me that, there are a lot of myths, fears when it comes to people in law. So what would you like to tell your successors, girls who want to join, who are thinking about law, and who have also have similar experience, but they do fear because of the fear of how injustice is done and the kind of fears attached to this profession for females. So what is your advice? What would you like to say to them?
Honestly, मैं तो यही कहूंगी कि जो लॉ है वो एक ऐसा प्रोफेशन है जिसमें आप डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट कर सकते हैं सोसाइटी में. You can have a direct impact for female empowerment. Of course, you can have impact in other fields too, but the legal field is such where, because you can directly be involved in advocacy, in policy making, in activism, in lobbying, you can actually have a direct impact on society. That is why I would really encourage females to join the legal fraternity, to be able to have direct impact on legislation, policy, advocacy. इन्हीं चीजों से तो societies change होती हैं. So the legal field is such whereby you can have a absolute impact. And I think बल्कि ऐसे बहुत landmark चीजें हुई भी हैं. अगर आपने देखा in the last year, Lahore High Court का जो एक case था, whereby the law was altered about the requirements of rape जो थी, so उसमें भी there was lots of female lawyers who were part of that advocacy and that campaign to get that law changed. So I think that the legal field में तो ख़वातीन का involve होना बहुत ही ज़रूरी है, because it's a very direct way to impact society through policy making and advocacy and activism. And so it's so important to have female representation in that arena.
Your message to the females: how can we strengthen each other? How can we strengthen women of our times?
I think my message to the females would just be to be your best version, to know your strengths. Like I said, your passion, your sensitivity, your loyalty, your compassion, your commitment is your strength. And you should never think of it as your weakness. These are the things that will take you forward in your life and in your professional career. So you cherish those things, you be your best version, and you do your best job, and you show courage and strength while you're doing it, I think would be my message to all the females.
Anything you can promise from your commit from your platform, like if any female wants to reach out to you, any kind of advice or maybe internship, something you could see looking at the merits on the merits.
Absolutely. I think हम लोगों का जो female students हैं इस वक्त, क्योंकि we are signing memorandums of understanding with some universities as well. So जो भी female students हैं who are researching on gender mainstreaming in urban public transport, gender-based violence, laws on sexual harassment, they're certainly welcome to come intern with us, share their research with us, learn from our research. As I said, we have a very solid gender action plan जिसमें females के लिए बहुत work opportunities भी हैं. We have 10% females in our office right now, and we hope to increase that number to a good 20-25%. So recruitment, employment opportunities, competent women are always welcome to apply. And in general also, we have our media campaigns as well as our advocacy campaigns to support the young girls of Pakistan in any way that we can. So all of those forums are open for us to capacitate.
It's such a pleasure speaking to you. I don't know how the time flew. I mean, it was really, really engrossing, and especially enlightening when you talked about gender, when you talked about workplace, when you talked about how we strengthening workplaces. It was really, really a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bisma, for having me. Thank you for giving me this platform and this opportunity to talk a little bit about the Red Line BRT and myself. And, just as a parting note, I wanted to say that it's also very important for us to tackle the misconception of women in Pakistan in general, because the general perception globally is that Pakistani women, are a certain way. But in my personal experience of traveling in both rural areas as well as urban cities, I've seen that Pakistani women actually have the kind of strength, they have the kind of courage, they have the kind of ability to keep fighting that is unmatched, to be honest, anywhere in the world. And I think that is what should be known about Pakistani women globally. That is the message that should actually go out. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak about that and giving me your platform. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for watching the video. For more such videos, stay connected with us on our social media pages, like, share, and subscribe to Red International.